Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Dobbs here. It's the 4th of March, 2019. I'm just going to show you an image or a video that I shot on the 2nd of March, 2019, a couple of days ago. I think it was like the new moon or something like that. I think right now is Shivaratri, which is quite an interesting time. But this video was very interesting because there was a whole formation up in the sky that could have been clouds at first sight, but the more you observe it, the more fantastic it started, because it just held this formation together the whole way through. So what I'm doing here is I'm just holding the camera in one space, just so we can analyse the speed and the direction it moves in greater detail on this aspect of it, and we'll just explore all the aspects of it as we go through it, and then we'll just do various bits with the camera and just hold it. So now we're going to look at that section zoomed in to see the movement. So we just got a much closer zoom in there of an aspect of that cloud, and like I say, we're just doing that right now just to look at its movements. As you can see, it's going to the left. It doesn't seem to be going down or up, but it does seem to be going slightly down and distinctly to the left. Okay, so now we're going to do that section again, but zoomed in, but twice as fast, just to give a little bit more definition of the direction that it seems to. Its downward motion is very subtle, but its left motion, movement to the left, is very distinct.
If we come over here, I don't know if you can see these stripes.
Look at that! It's incredible. So, and again, this is still filming. I haven't frozen the shot. I'm just holding the camera very still, so we can just do that same process again and just look at the movements. It's going to be moving to the left, like the other side, which you kind of expect if it was blowing over. I mean, difficult to say it one way or the other, but the formation is incredible. So that section again, we're now zooming in just to a part of it, just to kind of just by the by in this process to see its overall movement. It's distinctly moving to the right there, isn't it? And very slow, subtle movements. Okay, let's do that section again. Moved in, zoomed in, but twice as fast, times two. Slightly to the right. It's very. It's okay. So now the video continues. I'm just going to explore the shape of it, the phenomenal shape, the way it all comes into this cone, central point here. It's incredible to see. This kind of like, it pans off way to the right there, but follows the kind of like the horizon right across for quite some point, and then just starts bluing out right at the end there. But on the other side, it goes into this like the pure, blue sky. A little bit less, but you really get the idea that it's the nose of this whole thing. And of course we've seen the nose of this thing. Quite a few different people have caught the nose of this thing in its last transit around about sort of like late December, January. And so this is just enhancing that last shot, just looking at the nose of it. So we've just raised the red a tiny bit more, raised the contrast a little bit more, just to try and get some of that definition a little bit, because looking at this thing was just utterly it was incredible to see the structure of this thing. It's much closer now than I was imagining it, than I thought it was going to be. So it's not going out, where I was saying it's going out and potentially going to cross the Mars orbit before it doubles back and comes back in. It hasn't gone that far out. it's coming back much quicker, and it's coming round, and it's coming round behind Earth. I've done some overlays in a shake. Here we go. So we're going to go back to this kind of like scope.com shot. We're going to put that at an angle to try and capture our kind of like horizon level, and just to show the kind of angle of where this thing is sitting. You know, it's way to the left. This part is way to the left of the sun, and this is even more to the left of that. So it's coming in from our night sky, heading behind us. And so we saw it coming through. This is the point where we just saw the big sightings when it crossed around about, you know, from December through to January, and we saw all the effects. Remembering that last year on May the 4th, 2018, we had all the big volcano in Hawaii. We've had all these sightings, so we know that we've got to go back 1 month. This drops back 1 month every year. I mean, look at that sighting. This shot drops back 1 month every cycle, every rotation. So if it happened on May the 4th last year, then we'd expect it around about April the 4th. So may the 4th be with you on April the 4th, basically. Because this thing is clearly coming in now. I mean, it's travelling about 40,000 miles faster than we are. I imagine 45,000 miles faster than we are. So we're going to double off and go back round on our rotation. It's going to head out towards Mars. We know it affected Mars last year. We had all the dust storms. We saw volcanoes going off on Mars. We saw all sorts of effects. But all I can tell you is with asteroids and everything else like that we might get affected. The biggest thing that's going to affect us is where we choose to align during this time. If we enter into these free trade agreements, which will ravage, this whole thing that's happening with Brexit is a desperate means, as far as I can see, to drive Europe into signing agreements like Canada signed in their recent trade agreement, which is very much like the Trans-Pacific Partnership. They can't legislate anything. Everything is overturned by corporations. Everything can be made legal. Everything. In the name of corporate profit. Once one of these agreements is signed, you lose all your sovereignty. You have no power over these corporations to stop anything. Europe will be fracked. Europe will be genetically modified. Europe, all the things the European Union has stopped, we will not be able to stop anymore once the European Union is broken. All of these things will start coming in, and it will be very, very difficult for any one country, because it's all being driven by NATO. All of this is coming via NATO, that is driving this aggression and war, which sits behind this kind of dominant frontier, which is taking over this globe. What some people call globalization. I never think that globalization really captures it, but it is definitely a new world order that is stepping in, attempting to step in, and we have to stand up against it. And if we leave Europe, and we go and we try and force Europe into signing into these free trade agreements, we've got to try and reverse. This is a terrible mistake, and we've got to reverse it. And how are we going to do that? Can we do that? I don't know. I really don't know. But there's no chance in the movements of any of the debris in the tail of this, and there's no chance involved in the movement of the main body itself. It is a very precise thing that is being run by a very, very... It is the fist of God. It is that which regulates on this planet. I was always told that we approach a wall. That's why I wrote my book Laughing Gas, that where I try to make clear that we approach a wall, and that nothing of war gets past this wall. And I just didn't know what the wall was, and now I realise that this is the wall, and this is the nature of the wall, and this is what we're coming up against. If we leave Europe because of what we're attempting to do as a result of this break, and what we're trying to force Europe into signing and becoming part of, blaming Europe for all the woes the British government has done, and all the woes the American government has done, just to try and lump that all onto Europe, is so unfair and is so unjust. And Europe is a great partnership, is a great union of countries. It's such a tragedy to try and break that union and drive them into these horrible free trade agreements And that's what's happening here. That's all that Brexit is about. And so it's going to be everything you can do to try and alleviate this situation, and to keep our unity with Europe and not allow us to go down this road will be everything that you can do to stop the real adversities that come with being in such close proximity to something like this. It's the gods that protect you now, and it's the gods' protections that we are. It's the gods' protection that we are standing to give up if we leave Europe. That was the message I was given, and I didn't understand it at first, and now I do understand a lot more. And still, there's so much of this message I've been given that I don't understand. But I try and work through it as much as I can, and I realise it's such a difficult thing for you all to touch because you've the story, the fundamental backbone of climate change that you've been given, that CO2 is all because of man, is a man-made problem, has covered up all the volcanoes, and it's been very difficult to look at all the volcanoes and question those without questioning climate change. And if we can't question the volcanoes, we can never see what caused Fukushima. And if we can't deal with this problem, then we can not engage in it. If we can't look at the problem, we're never going to engage in the problem. And that's where we're at right now. This thing is coming in. It's moving like clockwork. Every aspect of it is utterly predictable and can be calculated, as I've demonstrated. Always before the flyby comes, always telling you you're going to get the flyby and showing you. There's so much I don't understand. But obviously there's more that we are understanding, and its movements are becoming more and more obvious and more simple. And we're learning to navigate. We're learning to navigate through them. So all I can really say is, I know I'm waffling on a little bit here, and always obviously showing the timeline, which I think is the only way I can bring the corroboration of this data together to demonstrate what I'm talking about. And the fact we just had an earthquake in London. Remember, this thing is coming in now, where I thought it was coming from the southern aspect. Even in my last cycle, I changed this as we learn more and more and more about it, and I realised that it's appearing now to be coming in now. It came up from the southern aspect in its last passage around about November, December. From the southern aspect, came up through, crossed into the northern aspect of our solar system, has been running across the top, and is now heading back through to the point where it's coming back down to pass through the ecliptic of our solar system to head down, which is where we've just seen it in the last shot that I just caught. So that's it, guys. It's, this is all our warnings. This thing's offering us so many warnings as each time it flies by, each time it demonstrates to us the power of it, of what it is. And we can argue with it, we can dispute it, we can do everything you'd like, but you will not reverse or change the devastation of Fukushima. And whatever devastation we allow to come in by letting NATO take us into war and letting Brexit be used as a Trojan horse to tear Europe to bits and to drive it into free trade agreements where it can be fracked and genetically modified. It's a road that will lead to disaster for us. If we place ourselves in the line of fire. Remember the 4th of May when this happened? That's what we're coming into on the 4th of April. There's no way of kind of getting around that. Too much corroborated testimony now. Anyway, there you go. I know I'm like an old record going round and round and round saying the same message, but for most people, I'm just going to be going up against their belief systems over and over and over. So I have to operate a bit like a daffodil, trying to push through a paved road, constantly pushing, offering the evidence, keep showing you, keep running through it, keep updating and bringing out more information to make it more understandable what's happening. So thank you again. Thank you for your time. I'm doing a podcast hopefully later with the Relentless Maverick, and he'll probably post that tomorrow, and we'll discuss this and more. So all the love in the world. Take lots of care. You know, we've still got another month, I imagine, before this really starts actually affecting us bigger. This next transit, but I can imagine it's going to be. I can imagine it's going to be quite obvious, and I can imagine it could even pull this southern aspect of our South Pole back towards where it's actually supposed to be, much closer to the sun as it goes underneath us, which could mean that we begin to lose our winter now, our summer, our early summer that we're certainly experiencing in France. Anyway, it's very difficult to say, but it's certainly getting closer, and which means that aspect is going to be less extreme, which means that we are distinctly going to get much. I'd imagine it's going to get much less bombardment with solar rays in the northern hemisphere than we've been getting whilst we've been for the last kind of month or so. So anyway, we will see. But you know, you've had all the epic shots. There's no shortage of evidence that this thing is flying around us. There's absolutely no shortage of evidence, but there's a lot of disbelief, and 3 nuclear power stations is surely enough to make you at least question what the hell is really going on. Thanks again. Take care. All the love in the world, and may the force be with you. Really, you're going to need all the help you can get through this transit, and if you don't want that help, all you've got to do is join up with one of these nasty free trade agreements. That is a deal with the devil. You all know that. You all know what that means. It means the most nastiest things happen to every aspect of what you are. Every aspect. You are utterly fracked if you sign that agreement. Britain is fracked. Anyone who signs such an agreement is utterly fracked. And you know that. You know that. Take care. Thanks.
If we come over here, I don't know if you can see these stripes.